All right, so a bit more science and space news. You know, I love a bit of space news. I like doing history segments, space segments, foreign policy segments.
I'm afraid I can't do
I'm
that.
your man for that.
Dave.
You're hurting me, Dave. I can feel it.
Carl can't watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's his greatest failing.
What do you mean he can't watch it?
He can't watch it. He can't get through it because he finds it too boring.
Oh.
I imagine there's just a little chimpanzee banging tambourines in his brain.
To be fair, it is a bit boring. Very long cutscenes of very poor quality special effects.
Incorrect. Terrible take.
Poor quality special effects. Now you're just doing it on purpose.
No, it's a great.
No wonder you think the moon landings was faked. If 2001
because of also poor quality special effects.
But it was directed by the same guy, clearly, though.
It was like late 60s, was it? It came out?
69, yeah.
So, yeah.
It's revolutionary. It still looks great today.
Bad, really, for late 60s. Anyway, we are returning to the moon, or at least unmanned probes, landers. And rovers and drones and things. Moon stuff is happening. In the last week or so, 10 days or so, 3 different landers have gone up and an orbiter.
I'm sorry, that's the best way to put it.
What?
Moon stuff is happening.
Breaking. Moon stuff.
Sorry, carry on.
You heard it here first, moon stuff. So
we do like a bit of moon stuff.
What, yeah?
Sure. Yeah. It's cool. I mean, it's not like a planet or anything, but it's,
I'd like to own a little bit of a lunar regolith in like a little thing that you put on the shelf as an option car. Yeah, that'd be cool.
A lot of those later turn out to be petrified wood, but yeah.
Oh.
Maybe you'll get one out of this set of trips.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so the idea is that we're going to go back, go to the moon.
Yes.
But like hundreds, thousands of times, if we're to build a permanent moon base, permanent moon station that's semi-permanently manned with a lunar orbiting station, all these things are required if we're going to go to Mars, you see. So if we're going to do all of that, we actually need quite a lot of infrastructure on the moon. We need to be able to land and take off from the moon hundreds and hundreds of times, right? So we just need to sort of start doing that, because the Artemis 3 mission, that's the big one, which is scheduled for 2027. I suspect it will get pushed back a year or two, but at the moment slated for 2027. A manned crew is supposed to be going to the moon, the Artemis 3 mission. So before they can do, and they'll be landing at the South Pole of the moon.
Have they picked the astronauts?
Yes.
It's a shame that they're not going to be more famous than they should be.
Yeah, that they're not already sort of well-known names and faces.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think they will be if we do go back to the moon. If we do go to the moon.
Yeah. Bo, it's all right. I'm here. You don't have to placate him. It's fine.
I just see his eyes whenever I say go back.
You can't tyrannize.
I'm not even
We've
doing
got him surrounded.
I'm not even doing a segment today. I just had to sit on this one so I could do the air quotes for the return.
So when we returned to the moon after when we were there in the 60s and 70s,
which we have recorded footage of.
We need to have a lot of things in place. So one of the main things is looking for water on the moon.
Right.
Because if you can find water, even if it's under the surface and even if it's ice, you can then do all sorts of clever chemical things and separate into oxygen and hydrogen and make all sorts of
rocket fuel and air,
and all sorts of things, and for even hydroponics, growing things potentially on the moon, all sorts of stuff. If you're going to have a manned or semi-permanently manned base, you're going to need ice, right? So they think that there's the best chance of that is at the South Pole, inside craters, often inside craters that are permanently in shade.
Weirdly, there's actually ice on Mercury.
Yeah.
For the same reason, inside craters that have never seen the sun.
Because Mercury is tidally locked to the sun, the way the moon is tidally locked to the Earth, i.e. the same face always shows us. So, on the dark side of Mercury, it's open to space and sort of always has been. So it can be...
quite nippy, actually.
Yeah, it can be a bit nippy. Yeah. Even though you're right next to the sun, basically. So, okay. So, sending up... Also, my mouse doesn't seem to be working. Can we scroll down on this? First few links, just to show people that it is in the news cycle.
You've told them to buy Islander, haven't you?
But I must interrupt myself to say by Islander magazine, the third issue
Oh, yeah.
of the Lotus Eaters magazine, Islander. It will get to you on time for the low price of $14.99 with some some great writers in there.
Are you in there?
I'm not in there this one. Should be in the
I mean,
next
could
one.
be
Have
better.
been in it before. But there's AA, Luca, Carl himself, the big man himself. Who's the golden one?
Oh, the golden one is...
Golden
oh,
one. What's
God.
his name?
Marcus Follin.
Marcus Follin,
And I can
aka
only-
the golden one.
I can only read his articles in his voice, which makes them very funny.
So do consider buying Islander. You keep it on your coffee table for all time. Okay, so first few links just to show that it's in the news.
There we go.
There you go. So one of the three landers that's gone up very recently, Blue Ghost, it's called. Firefly Aerospace is the company. So yeah, some people think, oh, it's just Bezos and Elon that are.
Well, I was going to ask, which eccentric billionaire is funding this?
There's loads of these companies.
Really?
There's loads. Yeah, I'll talk about some later. But this one's called Firefly.
Right.
And
That was a great series. It got cancelled well too
I
soon.
never watched it.
Great.
I never watched it. This mouse just simply is dead. Can you
Is that the
someone
most,
scroll down on
the
my
most that you
document?
know about space?
Can you pass me that?
There you go.
Do you want this
I'm
mouse?
going to pass it to Bo.
that one work?
Dun, dun, dun.
Why do we constantly have mouse issues on this podcast?
It's
Okay.
because you didn't turn it on, that's why.
Oh, I assumed it was already.
Right.
Oh, dear.
All right. So
It's very forceful, Dan.
You gotta...
I did notice something about this this little picture that we've got on the top of this article here, which is that obviously you require a ridiculous. Oh, sorry. You require a ridiculous amount of competence to be able to pull something like this off. And I noticed it wasn't very diverse.
oh right.
Oh, right. Well, that's...
I don't know if that means anything.
I mean, if watching Hollywood has told me anything, it's that you don't succeed without a diverse set of scientists.
That was that Ridley Scott film, right?
Yes.
Yeah, The Martian. Thank
Okay.
God Donald Glover was there to save the day.
So thanks for treading water there while I was having a problem with my.
Why you turned the
blatantly
mouse
treading
on?
water while I sorted my document out. Okay, so it's gone to the moon and it had a little lander on it, and I mean, real skeptics would say that's just some set somewhere, or it's just all not real, or the heavens are only 200 feet high, or whatever. I don't know.
We have got a comment who says that, yeah.
But there's other ones on a Falcon 9. A dedicated SpaceX Falcon 9 went up the other day, and that had two things on it: Athena, which was another lander, and Trailblazer, which was an orbiter, both looking for water ice. That if you believe it, that's an image from the surface of the moon.
Oh, I believe you.
If you
I
can believe
believe
it.
you. It's
And
okay.
That's the Earth.
I believe in current year we have the technology to pull off this.
That's supposed to be the Earth, if you're credulous enough to believe that.
Is the Earth even real?
This is
It's a bit round for me, Bo. Shouldn't it just be a flat disc?
Yeah.
on the back of
Where's
on the back of a
where's-
tortoise. No.
Where's the ice wall?
So they're looking for the water ice, and there's all sorts of other experiments on it. In fact, the Athena's got a small, what they call a micro drone called Grace. I think it's like a mini rover thing. I don't think it's one of the helicopter things like they had on Mars. Yeah, go back one. Go back
this one.
So that's Athena. Yeah, created by Intuitive Machines. So that's another one of these companies, Dan. Intuitive Machines, not SpaceX. It's their own thing. There was actually an IM-1 which failed. They sent that up, I think, last year, and it kind of failed. Someone dropped the ball, and there was some minor technical problem, and it sort of kind of crashed when it landed. One of its feet. It looks very similar to that.
That is a massive F up. I mean, if you're working at a place like this, you might occasionally forget to press record, and like people just talk for half. But imagine if you're working at a company and you did something that resulted in your $200 billion probe just like smashing into a rock or something. You'd feel like a right prat for ages, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would, yeah. It's much less than 200 billion, incidentally. That's part of the story, is that these things are way, way cheaper than everything used to be. Because NASA has got a program where it's called commercial lunar payload services, or CLIPS, which is NASA working in unison with private people. So someone like SpaceX builds the rocket and pays for the rocket. Some other company like Intuitive Machines will actually build the lander and pay for all of that. There's loads of these companies. Ceres Robotics, Blue Origin, Deep Space Systems, Astrobotic Technology, Draper, Lockheed Martin Space, Moon Express, Sierra Nevada Corporation, and there's more. They will build all the landers and do everything, and NASA just build the sort of oversee it all and green light it all, and they will just build sort of the science instruments. And they still control JPL, so they still control the data coming back and all sorts of things. So in other words, another way of saying it, NASA's just outsourcing loads of the cost, loads and loads.
That's some really nice, inspiring philanthropy. Yeah. I'm glad that they do that. That's good for them.
Because that's what they've done with the low Earth orbit thing. That's why SpaceX can sort of exist. Is because NASA used to have a complete lock on it, right?
Yeah.
They say, no, everything that goes into orbit is NASA, or perhaps a push.
Well,
the US Air Force.
Well, then there was a whole period where the Russians dominated it.
Oh, sorry, I just mean in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
But it used to be the case. I imagine if you approached NASA in like 1982 and said, I'm a billionaire and I want to launch my own stuff into low Earth orbit, they'll be like, no, that's our domain. No, go home. But now, because they've run out of money and various things, they'll let someone like SpaceX or Blue Origin or whoever do their own thing. So now a mission like this only costs, but costs like 100 million or something, rather than billions and billions.
That is surprisingly cheap.
Yeah.
I would like to think within 10 years I could afford one.
Right, yeah.
Then you can go test it out for yourself. Is
Yes.
that moon really up there? He says, as he brings his butter knife and crackers with him. Was Wallace lying to me?
Yeah, it's made out of Wensleydale.
Yes.
So there's loads of things that they're testing. They want to make sure that at the South Pole, they need to do lots and lots of experiments at the South Pole, basically, because we're going to build a base there, almost certainly, and keep landing and taking off from there. So they need to make sure that there definitely is lots of ice there.
I mean, if we're building a base in the South, we're going to have to kick the Nazis out first, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
The Nazi space base will have to be dismantled. Yeah.
I'm sure they'd be considerate neighbours.
Bruce Lee and Elvis can help us. They've both been spotted on the moon.
JFK as well. Let's not leave him
JFK,
out.
Yeah, sorry.
He and Elvis have been staying in the same elderly home together.
Bruce Lee, Elvis, and JFK in the Nazi moon base. So they need to do experiments on sort of the radioactivity, light conditions, dust. Need to do loads more experiments on just like the dust. When rockets blast the Earth, the lunar surface, when they touch down, you need to do loads of experiments on that, for example. Apparently it's very, very difficult, almost impossible to model in a computer. You have to actually do it for real and measure things.
Why do you need to know where the dust goes?
Well, there's loads of reasons. If you get moon regolith in the wrong thing, it could be disastrous. Yeah, no, it's really important. Right. And just lots of other experiments. So I just think we're living in an exciting time. That's the great Scott Manley. Play this without any audio. There's just some things to look at while we're chatting. There's been quite a few. There was a lander called Peregrine. That was an Astrobotics Technology one, which went up not too long ago. Unfortunately, that failed. Things often fail. That's the other thing. More missions that have gone to the moon have failed than haven't.
Yeah.
Like loads and loads of missions that have been to Mars over the years. I'm talking since like the 1970s. Loads of them have failed.
Well, it's genuinely hard to do this stuff. So you expect a failure rate, even if the best people are doing it. It's just jolly fortunate that whatever it is, the 7 times that people went, they all worked flawlessly first time.
Apart from Apollo 13.
Well,
and Apollo 1.
Well, yeah, they weren't.
And some of the Gemini missions, and some of the Mercury missions.
Didn't lose any people on the moon, though, did they?
No, he was lucky, very lucky.
Yeah, very lucky.
Very lucky indeed.
Very lucky.
You can present as much counter evidence as you want. It's just more evidence for him somehow.
The point stands, but okay, well, fair enough.
So there was the Peregrine lander. There was that IM-1, which they called Odysseus, which fell over, unfortunately. The Firefly Aerospace, that thing, the Blue Ghost. The Japanese Japanese company called iSpace have sent up a Hakuto R2. Again, that's in space at the moment, on its way. So the Japanese are getting in on it. I think that was sent up on a Falcon 9. So we're living in an interesting time of space exploration, and particularly the moon. We've got to do loads of stuff with and on the moon before we can go to Mars. And so all of it is, as I said before, is leading up to the big one, Artemis 3. And I wonder if there'll be enough evidence there for people to believe that, because lots of people think we're not even in low Earth orbit, don't they? They think that, like, the International Space
we obviously are, yeah. Crazy people.
Yeah, some people think the International Space Station is also just a psyop, and obviously fake and stuff.
No, that's definitely real.
Okay.
I just think it's a shame those people won't be a bit more famous for having the
when it happens.
Yeah, when it happens.
Because there's people, the odd person like me, that will sort of try and make a big song and dance out of it. But the mainstream media don't really talk about it all that much. However, one day in 2027 or after that, it will just be sort of in the news cycle fairly suddenly. We've landed on the moon. Like, those that are watching it and follow it and watch space channels and science channels, they'll know it's coming and be counting the days until Artemis 3, like I was with James Webb and stuff. But for the most people, they won't be aware. And suddenly it'll be on, like, BBC and it'll be everywhere in the mainstream news cycle that, oh, actually, there's dudes on the moon again. Off for the first time, sorry. Apologies.
I think it's again.
But I suppose the broadest point to make is that human progress is still going forward. There's this narrative, isn't there? This sort of pessimistic doomer narrative that everything is sliding backwards. That sort of the higher watermark of human civilization was just sort of post World War II times.
Yeah.
And that everything's sliding backwards. We're regressing. Well, people are getting stupid. Like, literacy rates are going down. People are more stupid than they used to be. I think the point is, no, there's like a bifurcation. One set of humanity is becoming much more sophisticated and clever and achieving yet more wonderful things, whilst another set is becoming dumber and less literate and more backward and barbaric.
If only there was
both things are happening at once.
Only there was some sort of way to distinguish between those people.
I feel as though the forced living space of being shared by both of those might explain why certain countries' literacy rates and height and other metrics seem to be going down. Less so than, like, an English person being dumber than they used to be. I think English people are just as smart as they always were.
Yeah.
But, I mean, on the point of progress, we have had a period of the last sort of 20 years or so where the best and the brightest have often been attracted and gone into the world of electrons. So basically, there has been progress, but it's been like in delivering software.
Right.
Whereas we're kind of now entering a period where atoms are making a return, where people are doing actual stuff rather than software. And it's nice to see the balance tip to, people doing progress in something which is actually tangible.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. No, it's nice. I feared that the same reason why architecture isn't as great as it used to be, or one of the main reasons, is just money. There's not much profit to be made in building a giant, fantastically ornate naval hospital, right? For example, at Greenwich, there's a naval academy / hospital, which is like one of the most fantastic examples of architecture ever. That wouldn't get made these days, not because we're not capable of it, not because we don't have the imagination, but there's no money to be made in doing it, so it's just not really going to happen. Whereas back in, like, the 18th century or something, it wasn't necessarily about that.
I mean,
it wasn't about profit as much. So,
and a lot of the nicest buildings in America were just incredibly rich philanthropists saying, "I want a nice building here. I'll make it a library
with their names slapped all over the top of them."
Yeah, fair play to it. If they paid for the whole thing, I say that's their right.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Extending that analogy, I feared that I might live through an age where we wouldn't really rekindle much exploration and lots of time and energy and political will spent on space projects because it's not profitable enough. Well, it looks like now that there is definitely a commercial interest, big, massive commercial interest in going to the moon, going to asteroids, going to Mars, and on. The exploration of the entire solar system, essentially. I mean, it's almost like the moons of Jupiter and Saturn are sort of perfect stepping stones, in a way. It's almost as if it was laid out for us to do it that way. But the first thing is to get a permanent settlement on the moon, and get used to going to the moon and back regularly, as though it's sort of nothing. I mean, that's the idea that SpaceX and Elon has got, that there's sort of a fleet of starships in low Earth orbit, and they're shuttling back and forward to the moon. Loads. There's dozens of them. They're taking off and landing, obviously reusable. That's the taking off from the Earth to low Earth orbit and to the moon and back, just completely as routine.
I mean, at the other end of the spectrum, I had to make the point on yesterday's podcast that car attacks in Germany are now so frequent that they don't even linger on the news. You know, they just drop immediately off the news. Instead, it'd be much better if we lived in a world where flights to the moon were so frequent that they just dropped off the news. That would be us going in the right direction for once.
Yeah. It looks like hopefully that will happen, and fingers crossed, in not that long a time. It won't be 30 years before that's a reality, I hope.
Yeah.
It might be as few as 5 to 10 years where there's SpaceX starships in low Earth orbit being refueled all the time, and we actually go to Mars before I die of old age. It might happen.
Islander issue 3 is now available to purchase from shop.lotus.com and is the next step in the story that we are telling with this magazine. For this issue, we have collected piercing and esoteric essays from the finest right-wing minds on the theme of our civilizational winter. Each of our authors is an expert in bringing forth the most important hidden revelations from the lowest reaches of the soul, and it has all been beautifully rendered in a medievalist revivalist aesthetic. For this issue, I commissioned a new translation of the ancient Anglo-Saxon poem, The Wanderer, and have written a companion essay exploring how it is a reflection of our modern experience. I personally feel that this is the most important thing I've ever written, so I will be looking forward to your feedback on it. We have resolved our distribution issues, with the magazines being printed in advance of the orders, so we can guarantee that you will receive your copy very soon after ordering it, and you will also receive emailed updates so you can see exactly where it is. Hopefully, issue 3 can provide you with the space and context to engage in deep reflection about the nature of our circumstances, to discover hidden truths about yourself and find the resolve to make it through our spiritual exile.